Welcome to Sweethearts or Rivals. I'm Charla.
I'm Justin.
What are we doing today?
Keyflower.
With the farmers.
Yep.
And the merchants.
Right on.
So either with the farmers and the merchants, it doesn't seem to increase the time any, but they do recommend it for ages 14 plus.
Mm-hmm.
You can still play with 2 to 6 players in about 90 to 120 minutes.
Right on.
There, now that the boxes aren't falling over anymore, what are we talking about?
We're just going to do our impressions of the merchants and the farmers.
So let's start off with what the farmers adds to the game.
Farmer adds a whole bunch of new tiles. It adds enemy pools. You create fields between your different tiles that are cut off by roads and buildings and rivers. It also adds new endgame scoring so that every field that has a sheep in it is a point. Every field that has a pig in it is 2 points, and every field that has a cow in it is worth 3 points. And of course, new endgame scoring. And it also adds a new resource, which is wheat, which you can use to increase your ability to transport stuff.
Right.
However, the farmers, most of the stuff that gets added in from the farmers is very contingent on the tiles that come up.
What does the merchants add?
For the merchants, it adds a series of contracts, which you can get mostly through tiles that are added in the game. It adds cabins that increase the upgrade ability of your home. And most of those either come from tiles or from the new boats that get added. And then finally there are extensions, which you can take a tile that is upgraded and upgrade it again to double the points it gives you.
Mm-hmm.
But then it limits the color of meeple you can place on it for the rest of the game. That, however, is not in any way connected to the tiles that get introduced to the game. It's just a new ability that is always available.
Right. And they both are standalone expansions, right? Because the contracts don't include any of the farming on them.
Correct. Yeah.
It would be cool if there were some contracts, though, that were for, like, sheep and pig and cows.
Yeah, I was surprised there wasn't.
Because they could have just added a few, like, if you wanted to integrate both expansions together.
Yeah. The Farmers was the first expansion. The Merchants was the second. So it really surprised me that the Merchants didn't include any.
Because you could just leave out the ones that were for the farmers.
Yeah, that would have been very easy.
Yeah.
Very odd. Oh, well. Maybe a future expansion.
Or, like, even a Board Game Geek promo.
Yeah.
On the Board Game Geek store could integrate them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you only need a few contracts.
Yep. Yeah. Now with the farmers and the merchants, there is a suggested way to play for the first 1 or 2 times. That basically means that when you play with the farmers, all of the farmer tiles are going to be in play. And when you play with the merchants, all of the merchant tiles are going to be in play. And that way you can get used to the mechanisms. But once you've taken and gotten used to those new mechanisms, the standard Keyflower game, you're not really going to know how much the farmers and the merchants are going to influence your game until the tiles start coming out.
Right, because in a 2-player game, you're only going to get to bid on 6 tiles each round.
That's right.
So maybe none of them are going to come out.
Yeah.
Even though you have both expansions integrated into your base game.
Yeah. The merchants is slightly different because there's actually not a lot of new tiles that get introduced with the merchants, and that's because the extensions they don't depend on a tile to come out to say now you can use them. They're always available.
Although the contracts are dependent on the tiles that come out.
Yep.
So you could have your contracts all out and ready to snatch them up, but maybe you're not going to get those tiles that let you get the contracts that game. So then you've just set up the contracts for nothing.
Yeah. And to be honest, out of the merchants, the contracts are kind of the part that I don't like the most.
That's your least favorite?
Yeah.
I find them interesting. I always like to be able to collect things, like, for that, and then get points for them in the end.
Yeah, yeah. It is a neat way to take a bunch of stuff that wouldn't normally give you points and possibly give you points.
Give you some more points, yeah.
I really enjoy the extensions quite a bit. I think that's very cool. There's a really good... Everything with Keyflower is always kind of like a trade-off. Like, I can take this meeple and I can put it on your tile, and I get to steal your stuff. But I've just given you that meeple.
Exactly.
There's always some kind of trade-off. So the extensions are really done well in the Keyflower spirit because hey, I've just doubled the points this tile is going to give me. And now I can only ever use blue meeples on that tile.
Right.
Great trade-off. I like that a lot.
And it's tricky because sometimes you don't have the resources to buy the extensions.
Yeah.
In the colors that work for you, because maybe the only ones you have resources for are the blue ones.
Yeah.
Well, I only have 2 blue meeples, so that's not going to help.
I like that quite a bit.
So I think like one of them's 2 resources, and another one's like a piece of gold, and one of them you can buy for a skill tile, and then one's for a certain color meeple, and then you can buy one for any color meeple.
Yep.
So it's tricky. But the skill tiles are different for each color.
Yeah.
And then the 3 resources are different for each of the 3 colors.
Yep.
And the other thing about the cabins, they're humongous. Look at them. Like, that's a big piece of wood.
They're massive.
And they're all supposed to go on your home. So if you end up with 2 and an extension,
Yep.
or even 3, like, you don't even hardly have anywhere to put your resources in your meeples. These are quite big, I think.
Yeah.
They could have been like a quarter of the size. But, I mean,
It's a nice big,
a
chunky piece of wood.
chunky cabin is pretty cool. But these tiles are kind of small for this scale of a house.
It's funny because we were playing and you looked at your tile and you had to move your 2 cabins out of the way and then realized you had placed one of your tiles wrong.
I did, like at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah. Just because it was hidden
From my
by the cabins.
humongous cabin. Yeah.
It was easy to fix, which was nice.
Yeah.
But it was funny.
So always keep that in mind. Like when you're in your home area, like I'm not even talking about a game, but and you have a cabin, you always gotta look behind the cabin to see if there's a road there.
That's right.
Before you go exploring your next.
Yeah.
And it's true in Keyflower and in life.
Yep, that's true. So that is the merchants. What about the farmers?
So the farmers have the animeeples.
Yeah.
Which are the cutest. The sheep, pigs, and the cows.
They are pretty neat.
And then the wheat. I really enjoy being able to transport more things.
Yeah.
Because you can get a big wheat thing going on, like a wheat engine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't really matter if you only have your one home tile.
Yeah.
Because then you can move things wherever you want them just with your one home tile.
It's kind of interesting that Keyflower, the farmers, adds a little mechanism that allows you to get more transportation, and then the merchants add something that allows you to get more upgrades.
Right.
That's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it is cool to play with both, because then you get those too.
Yep.
Maybe.
And actually, something that's interesting is the farmers adds a new start player tile.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just, hey, now I get to be first player, I'm first player and I get 2 gold, which makes that a much, much more powerful tile. And then the merchants adds 2 new versions of the boats. So if you have both of them, all of that stuff gets like upgraded immediately. And now if you're playing with lots of players, that's not that big of a deal. But when you're playing a 2-player game and it's always the same 2 boats,
right,
it's nice to have those upgraded ones. That's very cool as well.
it's true. And then your game can escalate a little bit quicker, because you can start really feeling like you're doing more, because you're having a few more extra goodies.
As for the animeeples and the fields, it's interesting because that is very, very, very like dependent on are those tiles coming out. And I love the fact that you get points in the farmers not for how many pigs you have, but how many fields have pigs on them.
Right.
So that is awesome. So even if only 1 or 2 tiles come out in the entire game, you can still use that and the wheat for transportation to really give yourself a boost in points. That's well done.
And I like it for 2 reasons. And it's because how you're placing your tiles, you're going to be a little bit more picky about how you have your roads.
Yeah.
Because you want to have as many fields as possible
Yep.
to put your animals in.
Yep.
And they just have to be 1 animal by the end of winter moved into that section. Because if you've got a field with 2 animals, and this is the second reason I like it, your animals are going to have a little baby animal. And the animeeples are a finite quantity.
Yep.
So if I can get all the sheep before you get all the sheep, you can't have any sheep.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get all the sheep points in the end.
Yep, that's true.
So I like that little race too.
Yeah.
And when you're having a race with animeeples, it's twice as fun.
Right on. Cool. I think I like Keyflower best with just kind of everything thrown in. Mostly because you're not really sure how much of each expansion is really going to influence your game, which makes more variable setup and more variety of gameplay in Keyflower. And Keyflower is one of those games that once you've kind of mastered the system, it's always going to constantly change based off of what tiles come up for that game.
Right.
So I think it works quite well.
And I'm glad we have both expansions.
Yes, me too.
For that exact reason.
Yep.
But if I only could get one expansion, for some reason, I think I would have picked the farmers over the merchants.
Yeah, I agree. I like the farmers a little bit better because it is so dependent on the tiles that come out. So you don't have to keep in mind all of the new rules for farmers until the tiles come out. Whereas for the merchants, it kind of changes the base gameplay a little bit because those extensions are always available. But that's okay because it's still nice. Yeah, it's good stuff.
All in all, I enjoy both expansions.
Yep. There are a number of kind of mini expansions, and they're just extra little tiles that can go in. And the great thing with them is none of them change the base gameplay in any way. They're just a new tile with new rules specific to that tile. And it's great because it just adds more replayability.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot of them off of the BGG, and I suggest you do.
I think one time we even ordered one, like, added it onto a Board Game Bliss order or something. Because sometimes they'll get a few of the promos as well that you can pick up.
Yeah. And they're awesome. And I'm actually really looking forward to getting more and more mini expansions to just add more tiles in.
So I think that's pretty much all we had to say about the farmers and the merchants.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you in the next video.
Laters.